that's great. I always get involved in tech problems. Anytime tech is involved with me, I just, So it is amazing to be with you today. I'm so excited. I was so excited to actually just come up and it's the first time I even saw the outside of this building. So after hearing a lot of the story from Heather and from Stuart when I've met them at network gatherings, it's amazing to come in, and it's a delight and a privilege to be with you here today. I'm going to start by reading out a verse from Hebrews 1-6. It says, "Now faith is confidence in what we hope for, and assurance about what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. By faith we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what was seen was not made out of what was visible. By faith Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. By faith he was commended as righteous, when God spoke well of his offerings. And by faith, Abel still speaks, even though he is dead. By faith, Enoch was taken from this life, so that he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away. For before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God. And without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists, and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him." Just read that last bit again. "And without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists, and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him." Now, it could have been a subject for a new TV reality programme. How do you bring together teenagers from an area known for its high poverty and low place in the school league tables? In fact, the secondary school had to close because it was so bad. With teenagers from an area known for its tourism, royal palace, and a secondary school that hits the high league tables with its results. When Andy first approached me, so it's all down, Andy first approached me with the idea that some of the young people from St John's could come to Possil during the summer and have a kind of short-term mission trip. If the truth be known, I was quite hesitant at first. You see, over the years, we've had lots of people come to us and say, "Can we come and do stuff to you?" But the do stuff, we want to come and do stuff. We've had lots of people, but they see we over the years have seen value in working with rather than to, rather than for. I've made a point of saying that if it was to happen, it could be more than just it had to be more than just a short-term mission trip, just for that one bit of time, but it had to be the beginning of a relationship. And he agreed that that was totally what he had in mind, and it started from there. That summer, young people from St John's and Clay worked together to renovate the back room in our building. This was before we sort of get going with the building project, and create it into a space that was much more, that was before damp and horrible, to a place that the young people really wanted to meet there. And then a few days later, the group of young people from Possil joined St John's in a trip away to England to visit a Christian youth festival. It had all the ingredients to fail. 6 young people from Possil were going away. My daughter was the only one who had any church background. And then there was a whole group. It was the biggest group of St John's I think that had ever been, because everyone went on that trip. And it just had the recipe to fail in my eyes. But the truth was that they came back with so many stories of how St John's welcomed our guys, and our guys just really gelled so well with them too. And it started on a special relationship, which meant through lockdown, which was soon after, it meant going online and joining each other's youth meetings, and it was so special. Now, the youth leaders involved in making that happen clearly had more faith than I did. Perhaps it's because they were younger. I don't know about you, but I think the problem with getting older is you sometimes go easily on making a point of thinking about, basing your faith on previous experience or what's happened before, rather than what God is inviting you into. And perhaps that's a bit of what Jesus meant when he said we need to become like children. From there on, our relationship with one another grew. And we've got, I mean, just from Heather sharing that story this morning, it's like there's so much, although we are so worlds apart in some ways, there is so much we have in common. And as she was sharing that, I was thinking, yes, yeah, that's so similar to things. And so because of that, our relationship grew. And I don't have time to tell the whole story, but basically, St. John's, like Stuart said, St. John's had a giving week and a sponsored walk and generously helped raise funds for our building project. I then felt God was actually prompting me through that to have our own giving week. It's not something we'd ever done. But the trouble is with being such a small church is you kind of know everyone who's in your church and the situation that everyone is in. And I knew that we only had 2 tax-paying households in our church. One of them was ours, and the other one was the other leader. And most of the people in the church either live off benefits or support raise, because they're missionaries, support raise their own salary. But I was totally amazed when we managed to raise more than £9,000 from that giving week, just from within the church. Jesus said, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. My faith is certainly of the mustard seed category. But however, I'm reassured that although we're called to have faith, it doesn't need to be big. Faith is putting your trust in something you cannot see. Sometimes doing that is easy. I can guarantee that all of you turn the light on every night with the assurance that the light is going to come on, even though you cannot see the electricity that works it. Why? Perhaps because you've done it hundreds of times before and it hasn't failed. But the kind of faith God is inviting us into is a bit different. It's putting your trust in things we hope for, things we've not yet seen. Sometimes those things can take a long time to happen too, and they can even not happen in our lifetime. We saw that a little bit even from the length of time from what Heather was sharing a bit of this morning. Another area I've seen faith worked out is with our garden project. Soon after acquiring Bowdowy Street Hall, which we were gifted, it's a bit like your circumstances here is like, actually it was given to us without even thinking that God had before we'd even begun to thought we needed a building, really. Reuben, one of the other leaders I work with, suggested it would be good if we could look at leasing the land that was next to the hall and making it into a garden. I've got some photos I'm just going to show you of that, of what that looked like before. So you see, that's our building there on the right, isn't it? And that's the ground that was there. It was actually a pub at one time, but because it got pulled down and it was now derelict, it was also full of rubbish. And if you see on the next slide, you can see the sort of what it looks like close up, what it was looking like. So it's full of rubbish. People used to just fly tip there. And I think the next slide shows a picture of the pub that was there as well. That's what it used to look like before my time, before like we lived in Possil. And yeah, that's what it was like. The ground was the site of an old pub that was demolished about 15 years previously. It had now become overgrown and was a fly tipping area. And that is not, what I've learned over the years of being in Possil is that really isn't good for people's mental health. It's something I was never really aware of beforehand, but with environmental issues, but just how much difference it makes, the environment you live in, as to how much difference it makes to how you feel. And if you are constantly going past rubbish, it makes you feel like rubbish. And it makes you feel worthless. And so he had the idea, Reuben had this crazy idea that we could dig over the land and plant some flowers and some more other aesthetically pleasing plants. I'm not a gardener, but, and even though I'm not into seeing those things, I agreed it would be a lovely dream. I too would love to have seen that happen. However, I couldn't see how it could all come to be. And if I was honest, I had very little faith it could happen. But I just thought, I just sort of let him get on with it, really, and see what happens. I'm also married to Dave, who is really good practically, and so if I need something like a bathroom changed in my house, or we need a new kitchen, he's great at doing that. But the problem with that is that when I spoke to him about it, he said, it's going to take more than a few spades to do that land. Because of the way it was demolished and because of what's underneath there, he said you're going to need some large plant to be able to do anything with that land. So remember what I said earlier about having that bit of knowledge is sometimes worse, whereas like Reuben was just thinking, hey, we can just get on with it. When I looked at Google Maps as well, like the aerial view you see on Google Maps, I could see that the actual size of this land, which was difficult to see from looking at it on the pictures, was actually twice the size of the land that we had with the hall itself. So it's like, wow, that's a lot. So I agreed with Reuben to allow him to make inquiries to obtain it, knowing, and it was going to be a long process anyway. Fast forward about 5 years, don't want to go into all the process, but a lot of toing and froing with councils, with the arm's length organisations that he actually belonged to, that owned the land. We were then now in the process of purchasing the land, and the local housing association, who were building new homes in the area, actually offered to spend £200,000 developing it for us, providing we would help to maintain it. What was like, I'd love to say that was I would love to say that was my faith that got us there, but, honestly, it was not. Not only has the land become a much more beautiful space than we had hoped for, because it's a community garden that's beyond anything we could ever really have dreamed of. And I can show you, there's some pictures here I've got of what it looks like now. It's like, that's what it looks like now. So you can see the hall in the background there and the garden, and I think there's a couple more possibly, yeah. So that's from our hall direction, what you can see with our sort of cafe tables out there, and there's a lot of people playing. So you can see from there as well that we have actually got a building site across the road from us. And there's actually 200 new homes being built just across the road. So the timing of this has been perfect, I believe, because I really believe there's going to be a lot of people connecting with us in that way. I think there's one more picture of people, people sitting out in the garden using it. It's been great to see the space being used, especially because that was the other thing I think I said, you said, we could sit out in the garden, I said for the 1 week in the year when Scotland provides the good weather. Whereas I say already, we're only in May, and already we've had tables and chairs out there so much already because it's a bit of a sun trap really in that space. And it's been great to see. On Friday we had an old sort of a granny that comes into the cafe sometimes. She was out there doing crocheting, and we had kids playing, and we had people meeting up. It's really great to see the garden used. And it's just, and the way that, because the story of our hall and the way that that's been that's been sort of renovated, and whenever people come into the hall, they always say what amazing space it is. So the great thing about the garden is accessible to everyone 24 hours a day. So my hope, and our hope for it all, is it becomes a space where people can meet with God. It's not about having a garden, but I think what it's actually done is provided hope for the community in they're seeing something that's not rubbish. And the amount of comments we've had from the community, just about the amount of people that walk past. You saw in those photos, there were some high-rise flats just behind. That's the way that people walk all the way to school, is past that garden space. What a difference it has made. While we were going through the process of getting the garden, that land space, we discovered that the old members of the Gospel Hall that had gifted us the building to us a few years previously had prayed many times when the pub was there for the space to be reclaimed for God's purpose. So by then I knew that was, okay, perhaps it's not just Reuben's crazy idea, but perhaps this is something of God. They actually told us about a story about how the pub didn't actually like the Gospel Hall because when they would sing so loud with their worship music that they had to turn the jukebox up because it was like a bit of a war. And the pub was one of those places renowned for all the dodgy dealings and stuff that went on. There was all sorts of things from what I hear that went on in that pub. So it's great to actually be able to reclaim that for God's purpose. And we have certainly benefited from the prayers of faith of those that have gone before us. Your journey here to Lowport has certainly been many stories of hope and faith. And I'd like to remind you that it's not the end, but just the beginning. Sorry about that. For those of you that are feeling tired and weary, it's not the end, but just the beginning. There is going to be so many. There's going to be so many more stories to tell. Hebrews 11 that I read out at the beginning is often known as a hall of faith, as it lists many stories of faith from the Old Testament. It's a celebration of faith, showing its transformative power in the lives of those who trust God. It reminds us that faith is not about obtaining immediate results, but maintaining hope in God's promises. I need to hear that quite a lot, because I'm the sort of person that wants those immediate results. It serves as an inspiration for us to keep going despite the circumstances, trusting that God's perfect plan will unfold in his perfect timing. I don't know about you guys, but for us, it's certainly been an evidence of perfect timing for us as we've gone about our journey. As much as I would have loved to have seen everything happen straight away, looking back, actually, no, that was right. Verse 6 states, without faith, it's impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. What does it mean to earnestly seek him? Well, perhaps it's my simple thinking at times, but I always love to think of it as like a game of hide and seek with Jesus. I like to be that young child who's calling out to him, "Where are you?" There's nothing more fun than going prayer walking in your community, calling out to Jesus, "Where are you?" Although it's better if you don't do it like audibly aloud. People might think you're a bit mad. My experience of this is that he leads me to places and people who I would never have noticed before. He's led me to people who have been open to speaking with them and sharing some of their stories, which has led me to pray for them. It doesn't always work out like that. Most of the time, it's just a short conversation with someone, chatting about the weather or their dog. But I'm encouraged by the fact that I may be the only contact with someone they have that day, the only opportunity for Jesus to touch them. I wonder how we can be better at earnestly seeking him this week. How can we be better at finding Jesus in those places, seeing what he's inviting us into, what he's inviting us to put our trust into and put our faith into. I'm going to invite the worship band back up to play, and then we're going to, in a moment, going to have opportunity. Stuart's going to come up. We're going to have opportunity to be able to share, write on stones and post-it notes for this centre, but also just to be able to think, what is. I just encourage you to think, what is God inviting me into within this? What is my place in this story? What is it? It's not just something someone else is doing, but what is Jesus saying to me? You need to put faith, hope, and trust in this.